could just move over back to where. Now it's like, oh, yeah. Vice Chair, we are in the customer service business, and I do have to do, you have more coming.
Okay, Vern's here.
I was gonna ask the commission, because a lot of the stuff tonight is more related to the commission, if it's possible. Instead of making the customer wait for all of that, if we could maybe have them go first, and then we can proceed with the training.
Should I make that announcement?
Yeah, well, the commission would have to approve it, agree to that, and we can come back to it.
Right. Yeah, fine with me.
This, agenda item, eight, second.
She's gonna be for the informational item.
Yes, that's possible.
Okay, let's see if I can get around how to say that. Are we doing a land acknowledgement out loud or?
No.
You ready?
Good.
All right, I'm calling this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call and establishment of quorum?
Sure. Commissioner Barron,
Here.
Vice Chair Walton,
Here.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes, here.
Commissioner Herr.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Here.
You have quorum, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Can we have a moment of silence and a volunteer for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I'll be happy to do the pledge.
Excellent, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Any special announcements or communications from the floor? None? Any ex parte communications for quasi judicial matters? None? All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda and the approval of minutes. Anybody have any corrections and additions for the minutes? No, can I get a motion to approve?
I so move.
And a second? And we've got a,
Need a
motion
second.
and a second. And a roll call vote, please.
I didn't hear the second.
Oh, Commissioner Rana is the second.
Commissioner Barron, Vice Chair Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Herr,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then, request, I think, can we move, our public hearing, item 8A above our informational items 7? Can I have a motion to move item 8A before our informational items?
So move.
Thank you. Can I have a second? I've got a motion from Commissioner Jacobson and a second from Commissioner Barron.
Commissioner Barron, Vice Chair Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Herr, Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then we're going to move right into that item 8A for our public hearing.
Sounds good. Nick, you're up.
All set?
Yep.
Okay. So today we're here for a conditional use permit for 3340 Paul Davis Drive. Next slide, please. Little background on this project. So back in September 9th, 2008, the Planning Commission actually approved the same use permit for the same use. One of the conditions of approval is that in order to fully entitle this project, they were required to get a building permit issued and occupancy for the unit. Of course, as all of you know, in 2008, there was a downturn in the economy. They started the work on the tenant improvements. They got through a couple different inspections, but on March 15th, 2012, the building permit for this caretaker unit expired. So that use permit went away because it expired. On January 31st, 2024, the applicants reapplied for the same caretaker unit in Suite G of 3340 Paul Davis Drive. So this is the location. It's part of our business park. It's a unique part of the city where it caters to contractors. There's some wineries there. It's a pretty unique area. It's pretty desirable for people to locate there, and they're one of the units in this development. Here is the overall site plan for the site. You can see there's lots of parking. The site's actually overparked. And then there's loading docks on the back. Next slide, please. So this is their floor plan, the mezzanine floor plan. There is a lower level, and there's there's some steps that go up to an upper mezzanine as well, which is used for storage. Below is where they use for their work, their main business. And you can see that it's a 1-bedroom with a full bathroom and open kitchen living room area. It has loft ceilings. I actually walked the site with the applicant before they applied for the use permit, and they have done the drywalling, they've done the rough electrical, rough plumbing. So it's pretty close to being done. I think hopefully they can get through this, and then there's building permit would be the next step. So next slide, please. So it's a pretty straight use permit. It's just for a caretaker unit. So this is the recommended motion. I'll just point out that with caretaker units, the people that live there have to either work for the business, or have to be an owner, or they have to be someone that watches over the overall site. So this is a similar type of requirement for any caretaker unit. There has to be a connection to the actual business or the business location. So this is a recommended motion. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. And there's an applicant here to answer questions as well.
Nice, and open up to discussion from the dais. I only have one question. So, oh, all right, and my question is, I think for staff mainly, is this like an ADU but on a business site?
Pretty much, yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
That-
but yeah, so back when ADUs were first done, they were like caretaker, they're kind of similar, more similar to this, where they had a purpose.
Mhm.
And now through state law, they've been much more opened up. So this is going to be more like an old school accessory dwelling unit. Mhm.
and is this open for more of our, is there a lot of opportunity for this in this area in our business park there, or kind of like a solo?
If people wanted to do this, sure. We will probably see this come with another use permit in the future. It's usually it's an accessory use to
Mm.
the primary use, and where it makes sense, we'll have it. So I think there's going to be an assembly use coming before you in the next few months that will have a caretaker unit as well. So you're going to see two of them in a row. But I wouldn't say that the people are asking about this very often. It's pretty unique situation to this space. This is the first one I've dealt with in the 2+ years I've been here. So
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Warren?
Okay, just one very simple question. What does the on-site caretaker unit involve? What are the kind of service?
what was the last word you said?
What kind of service?
What kind of service?
Yes.
What do you mean by that? What do they have to do for the site, or
No. What do they do on this?
this particular caretaker? So if they were managing the site, they could be like a security guard, someone who watches the site at night, for instance, would be a generic idea of a caretaker unit. In this regard, it's a person who's works at the actual shop, at the business. And I open it up to be owner, someone who works there, or someone who manages the area in case that the business changes hands in the future and there's someone wants to just make sure the site is safe and watched over at night. That's the idea of a caretaker unit, is that someone's there 24/7 for security purposes, is typically.
So it is just the caretaker lives there
Yeah.
and that's what.
Yeah.
So this conditional use permit was given in 2008 and it went away in 2012. So after 12 years, so what are the mitigating factors that the permission was given and this was not utilized for the purpose for which the conditional use was given about 12 years ago?
I can't speak to what was done 12 years ago. The use permit that they got back in 2008 was pretty simple. It was more simple than my staff report. It was a pretty brief staff report, pretty brief findings and conditions. So I expanded on that a little bit. So in the staff report, you can see the findings for approval. It's consistent with the general plan, consistent with the zoning.
And Nick, I think maybe if the applicant wants to speak to why they didn't finish it. And
why they didn't
doing
finish it?
it
Oh, yeah,
now,
they can
maybe-
speak to
maybe
that,
What
yeah.
are what's the
Sorry.
background? And so,
Okay, yeah. Misunderstood. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
My name's Ben Smith. I'm the owner of the property. And the person that's going to be staying there with my son, Justin.
And he'll be the third generation to take over Marina Plumbing and Heating. So that's our present location right now, and we don't plan on moving. So your question, I'm
My
sorry.
question was that 12 years ago, this permit was given and in say 2012, this permit expired, and after now 12 years, you are asking again to give this conditional use.
Well, a lot of things happened in the 12 years. We kind of went through a recession in 08, 09, and then even into 10. And then we had COVID. So it's been a struggle to get finances all the way up to par where we can finish it now. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions for the applicant while they're, Commissioner Hurd?
Well, my question is, once you get the approval, what are your prospective plans as to start building this caretaker unit?
Well, like Nicholas said, it's probably what, 90% completed?
Yeah, I mean, the rough stuff there is missing the kitchen and the walls and stuff, but it's pretty close. It's nearly there.
I mean, we're at a stage right now and we stopped. We have the drywall up. So we need what they call a nail inspection. And then we'll get it taped and textured. And then we'll get an inspection on that. Then we set cabinets, paint, flooring. And from there, it's like I said, it's almost 90% completed.
So it will be habitable soon.
Oh, yeah. We're hoping very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Jacobson? All right. Okay, so I think, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. I think, are we at a place where we can call the question? Can I get a motion to approve?
Is there any public comment? Chair?
Oh, thank you. Is there any public comment? Anyone online?
Vice Chair Walton, I don't see anybody raising their hand.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I can find the.
I'd be glad to make the motion if
Oh,
you'd like.
thank
Chair. I move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 24-08, approving conditional use permit CU 24-002 to allow an on-site caretaker unit at 3340 Paul Davis Drive, Suite G, APN 033-012-023, subject to findings, conditions of approval, and find the project exempt from environmental review under section 15301, 15303, and 15332 of the CEQA guidelines for existing facilities, new construction and conversion of small structures, and infill development projects respectively.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobson and Commissioner Hurd. If you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jacobson and a second from Commissioner Hurd.
Commissioner Barron, Vice Chair Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana, Commissioner Herr, Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes, Vice Chair.
Thank you and congratulations. Mhm.
Have a good evening.
You do the same. And then now, are we returning now? We are going to return back to item 7.
Yeah, and Joseph, can you share your screen? Because we're still having something's going on with the projection again, so.
Oh,
I can share,
that would be great. Yeah. Good
Okay.
evening, commissioners. No, I don't. I'm actually on a separate computer from.
Oh, okay.
Presentation is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Let me just try to see if we can. Can you,
There we go.
not showing there. Yeah, go ahead. Good.
Okay, we're good. Are we good to go?
No.
Oh, okay. Just so you know, I can see it from the
Okay, why
virtual
don't you-
side. I do
Please
see-
move.
Okay. Can you see that okay?
No, what did you do though? Sorry.
I just went to the other screen and I took it away. It was
Okay.
just stuck on the other screen.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so we're very fortunate. We switched over city attorneys and Joseph is our deputy. He has quite a bit of land use experience. He provides land use services to multiple cities. And so he's going to be giving a training today about what the commission should do in terms of if you do need to attend virtually and what the rules are and whatnot. So I'm going to pass it off to Joseph.
Thanks, Guido, and good evening, commissioners. So I'm Seth Petta. I've met, I think, most of you, if not all of you, before. Tonight we'll be talking about a specific procedure under the Brown Act. I think you're all aware of it. I have seen a memo that was provided possibly to commissioners in the past regarding Assembly Bill 2449. And just side note, I think the agenda online may have a slight clerical error, refers to a different Assembly bill. But just to be clear to the public, this is Assembly Bill 2449, went into effect last year. And this governs, provides new rules, new procedures when commissioners and city council members and other decision makers want to attend a meeting virtually. But to back up a bit, this is part of the Brown Act. And as you all know, the Brown Act is California's foundational open meeting law, open government law. And if you go to the next slide, Guido, everyone will see just a few of the great resources out there discussing the Brown Act, which has, of course, many different rules and procedures in it. I'll just be talking about a narrow provision of the Brown Act today. I'm happy to provide these resources if anybody would like to read them in the future. And of course, if need be, we can give a broader Brown Act training down the road. But that would take quite a bit more time than we have tonight. So as just for background purposes, and yeah, pause here for a second, please. The Brown Act applies to meetings of elected and appointed officials, whether those meetings are in person, virtual, or otherwise. And as you all probably know, that includes meetings by phone, text, email, or by Zoom. Basically, any means of communication can constitute a meeting under the Brown Act. Brown Act does not apply to staff or the public. I'm able to appear virtually tonight and at most commission meetings without following the AB 2449 procedures I'll be talking about tonight, because I'm not a decision maker. I'm essentially a staff person under the law. For the same reason, weekly staff meetings don't have to be noticed or open to the public. Again, the rules I'll be talking about tonight are aimed at elected and appointed officials. And as you know as well, the purpose of the Brown Act is to promote transparency and openness, and not always efficiency, right? So the first two things are the goals of the Brown Act. And so you'll see tonight that some of the procedures here are a little onerous and take some time to figure out, which is why we're holding this training. So this slide is just basically the only other slide I'll provide talking about other, general provisions of the Brown Act. Tonight we're having a regular meeting of the Planning Commission that required 72 hours notice of the meeting and the agenda. That's why we post the agenda that many hours or days in advance. Special meetings occur much less frequently, and they require only 24 hours notice. There are special procedures to notice and conduct a special meeting. And then very rarely, emergency meetings can be held under a different provision of the Brown Act, and those don't require the same kind of pre-notice requirements, although you do have to notice those meetings after the fact. As you know, before COVID, most meetings, the default was essentially in-person meetings with occasional remote attendance. And when I refer to the term teleconferencing tonight, that's kind of an old-fashioned term we're probably all familiar with, but that in the Brown Act means any kind of remote attendance. So it means Zoom, it means webinars, not just voice. When COVID was, in full force, we were exclusively online. Pretty much all, really all agencies throughout the state were pursuant to government governor's executive order. Now, having come out of COVID largely, most cities are doing some kind of a hybrid approach, which is what Marina has opted to do. I do want to note that that's not obligatory. So some cities have chosen not to opt into these new virtual meeting requirements that I'll be talking about tonight, and that's their prerogative. They can do fully in-person meetings and provide only the long-standing original teleconference option, which I'll explain in a moment. But again, Marina has provided this hybrid option. Okay, so this slide will dive right in here to the three different options that have existed over the years. So before COVID, we had just the option on the left. That's called, like, for purposes of tonight's presentation, the usual option for commissioners and council members to participate virtually. So this, like I said, was not used all that frequently before COVID, and probably won't continue going forward to be used that often, but it remains an option and has no sunset clause in the Brown Act. As you may know, that kind of the classic example where this arises is if you have a member of the commission who's traveling for work, but they don't want to miss an important meeting. Ideally, they would know the details of their travel and their likely location, their exact location, actually, before the agenda is posted. And as you know from the prior slide, that is for a regular meeting 72 hours in advance. And so then they can work with staff and the city attorney to arrange to attend remotely. The requirements for that remote attendance were and are still that their remote location, like a hotel meeting room, has to be listed on the agenda with the address and posted wherever the agenda is posted. The agenda has to, in fact, be posted as well at the meeting at that remote location, so outside the door of the hotel meeting room in that example. One of the reasons this was rarely used and will likely, continue to be rarely used is commissioners typically don't want to post their home address on agendas. And so if you're taking a meeting from home for some reason, you'd have to do that. And furthermore, open your home to the public, which probably would not actually occur, but of course it is a requirement, so it could theoretically happen. So as you can see, that there are many reasons why that option is not really ideal for most commissioners. Then during COVID, we'll switch to the middle column here, there was this emergency option available. Actually, recently, within the last year, this option was extended through 2025. So it's around for another almost 2 years. And it's built into the same provision we'll be talking about tonight in the government code. We won't really be talking about it in detail, but it's basically a state of emergency option if the local agency declares a sustained state of emergency, which requires making new findings that an emergency exists every 45 days. And you did that, as you may know, during COVID. I think the requirement is you make new findings every 30 days. Now, the last column is what we'll be discussing tonight. So this is AB 2449, and we'll call this for tonight the just cause, or we'll call it physical or family emergency option. I want to distinguish that emergency from the middle emergency column. And so moving on to the next slide, this new option provides basically new pathways for people to attend remotely. Additional flexibility, but it's a double-edged sword, so to speak, because with that flexibility comes some uncertainty in the laws, in interpreting a law and its application. Luckily, this law has been around for over a year now, so we've had a chance to apply it, and there's not really any case law construing it yet, but cities have gotten, and my firm, for example, has gotten more used to advising cities on how to use it. Next slide, please. Okay, so under AB 2449, there are two, I'll call them options for joining remotely. The first is called the just cause option, and that is a term of law that's in the statute. And the second option is the physical or family emergency option. So I compare and contrast them in a few ways here, and I'll do that same thing on the subsequent slides, but let's stay here for a moment. So under both options, the commissioner who wants to attend remotely must notify staff and hopefully myself, the assistant city attorney, as early as they can. And now, ideally, that would mean a few days ahead of the meeting if you know something's going to arise that prevents your attendance in person. But technically, the law allows you to say so at the start of the meeting. And so you would let Guido or Allison or Nick or anyone know, and me, so that we can be prepared to walk you through the steps of AB 2449. The just cause provision does not require a vote of the commission, of your fellow commissioners, to allow you to use that option, whereas the physical and family emergency option does require a vote be taken. And the reason is, I think, implicit in the law. You can use the physical emergency option more times per year than you can use the just cause option. So I think that the vote requirement is just a limitation on your ability to use that isn't really relevant to the just cause option. And you'll see exactly that below. I'm sorry, no, I guess I discussed the frequency on a later slide, but below talks about the substantive requirements for using each of these options. So there are 4 circumstances for just cause, and you can see there caregiving for certain family members, contagious illness, physical or mental disability, and travel while on official business for the city, that is the city of Marina, or another public agency. And then you can see that under the physical and family emergency option, that is reserved for physical or family medical emergencies that prevent you from attending in person. So right off the bat, you can see that there are some interpretive issues here that cities just have to work out on their own. What exactly does it mean to care for certain family members? The types of family members that are eligible to care for are defined in the health and safety code. So there's no question there, but there could be a question about whether, what kind of caregiving is allowable here. And that's just, the city has the authority to sort of, allow the commissioners in this case, I think, just to state, I'm going to use the just cause provision and I'm caregiving, and not ask for further information. And I'm fine with that approach. And I think we can all agree that we'll only use these options when necessary. And of course, you're only limited to using it twice a year anyway. So I don't think that anyone's going to run rampant with this option. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the practical considerations to handle these requests? So again, I mentioned make the request as soon as possible, hopefully well before the meeting so we can prepare, but no later than the start of the meeting. Let us know and let your fellow commissioners know the reason. In general terms, you don't have to disclose any personal confidential medical information, of course. Now, for the emergency option, as I said on the last slide, you do require a vote of your fellow commissioners. And so one way that cities have been dealing with this item coming up after the agenda has been posted is to have a standing item on their agendas just to deal with these requests. And so we can talk, I can talk with staff about implementing that if that makes sense for the city afterwards. But in the event, for now at least, that someone requests to use the emergency option, there is a provision under the Brown Act that allows you to add a last minute agenda item for this exact purpose to the agenda, even if it's happening after the 72-hour period. Staff, of course, this does place a burden on staff to track the number of times that commissioners are using these options each year. So staff should hopefully already be doing that to the extent some of you have used these options since January. And we'll just have to keep tabs and let you know if you've already exhausted your number of times you can use it. Another requirement for both options is that a quorum of commissioners be present in a single location, in this case, the chambers, when other members are requesting the remote option. That's different from the longstanding teleconferencing rule, which just required that those commissioners be present somewhere within the city limits. So this actually requires that a quorum be present in the chambers. Video and audio must be on for the remote attending member the entire time. So if you lose audio or lose video connection, we have to pause the meeting until we can get it reconnected. All votes have to be by roll call, and that makes sense because there may be some reason why it's difficult to see someone raising their hand or whatnot over the screen. And finally, the remotely attending member has to disclose anyone over the age of 18 that's in the room with them. And that's just for disclosure purposes. It doesn't prevent their participation if someone over 18 is in the room, but you have to state that they are, and you have to state their relationship to you. And this is likely just for people's confidence that the commissioner is making decisions using their own independent judgment. That particular provision provides a little bit of difficulty because, of course, if you're attending a meeting from, say, a hotel lobby, hopefully you wouldn't be doing that. But following the letter of the law, you'd have to disclose whether other people are in the room with you over age 18, which you may or may not know, and their relationship to you. So ideally, of course, you should be attending a meeting from a closed room where you have some privacy and that incident doesn't arise. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so I think I covered this already, but under the usual longstanding teleconferencing option, you had to allow the public to physically attend at the remote location. You do not have to do that for the just cause option or the physical emergency option, which is a big relief, obviously. Next slide. I think I covered most of that one. And I think I got ahead of myself and covered this one as well. So this just explains that the usual option required at least a quorum, participate from within the city. And over on the right-hand side, the just cause or physical emergency option requires that a quorum be in a single location open to the public. Next slide. This one's important. I alluded to this earlier. So if you look at the third column, the AB 2449 rule is that for just cause, you can only use that option. Each commissioner may only use that option twice per year. And so staff will have to make sure that you're not exceeding that. And then additional rules apply for both options. And these are a little more complicated. So you can't use either option for more than 3 consecutive months. So what that means for just cause is you couldn't attend remotely in November, December, January, and February, because even though that would only be twice in theory, twice per year, twice per calendar year, if you just attended remotely for once in November, once in December, once in January, once in February, you would be violating the 3 consecutive month rule for that apply to both options. So staff will have to keep track of that. Furthermore, you may not use either option for more than 20% of the regular meetings in the calendar year, and you can't use either option for more than 2 meetings if the body meets fewer than 10 times per calendar year. I don't think that applies to your commission, so I think we can ignore that one. Bottom line, because we're going to allow this option for commissioners, staff needs a good way to track. So wrapping up, some technical considerations and difficulties that arise here. So, and I think I may have mentioned this already, but if you get a power or internet outage at the city's in-person meeting room that cuts off the connection between the remote attending commissioner and the city, or similarly, the commissioner's connection breaks at their house, then we have to pause deliberations, especially if there's a matter being voted on, until we can reconnect. That's very important. There's actually a provision in the Brown Act that says that's specifically says that's a violation if you continue with proceedings while the connection is severed. That calls, as this last bullet suggests, for possibly some kind of contingency planning on the part of the city to have some kind of backup internet or backup power in case that happens, and in case it's a really important meeting. And I think that's it. Let's stop there, and I can take any questions if there are any from staff or commissioners. And thanks a lot for listening.
So, Sep, I just wanted to confirm. So before all you commissioners start trying to attend from a baseball game this summer, we do need a quorum of the body in the chamber. That's correct, Sep?
That's correct, or at least in a single location that's publicly accessible. Yeah, which would be the chambers most likely. Yeah.
And then I guess either the emergency or the just cause, one of them they could do it up until the meeting. But I think one of the key points from staff would be, if you think you're going to have a conflict, please let us know as soon as possible so we can work through these provisions of the law with our deputy city attorney. Is that a fair summary, Seb?
Yeah, that's just as a courtesy, and that's so for either option, you can state it if necessary for the first time at the meeting. But of course, what the law says is you have to give notice to your city, to your staff, and me at your earliest opportunity. So if you know days in advance, that's when you have to let us know, and that gives us time to prepare. So we're not scrambling. Yeah.
Any questions from the commission?
Will this PowerPoint be distributed to us later?
Yeah, well, actually, I defer to the attorney. It's not an attorney-client privilege document. I mean, we can share this.
Oh, no, absolutely. This should be, yeah, I would recommend that you provide this to commissioners, link it. It can be linked from tonight's agenda. Yeah. And again, happy to meet individually with anyone who has questions.
I will make a note and I'll send it to the commission as a BCC, so we don't create a serial meeting. So let me make a note now.
Thank you.
I think I see Commissioner Jacobson and then Commissioner Rana.
Yeah, I just find this rather cumbersome. And I really don't understand the real intent of it. It seems to me, if I think myself personally, if I'm gonna miss a meeting, I would say I'm gonna miss a meeting. And unless there was something very critical on the agenda, there would be no reason for me to call in as long as you had a quorum. So this is it's kind of interesting to me that they restrict it to only 2 meetings a year and put all these restrictions on it. Seems cumbersome. Seth, what do you think? Joe, what do you think?
Commissioner, I couldn't hear. Were you asking me or are you asking your
Yeah,
colleague?
he was asking you.
Yeah, I was asking you what your opinion of this
Oh,
was.
oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I think when this law was passed, it had city attorneys scrambling to understand it. But look, if you and anyone else decides you have to miss a meeting for some reason, you're not obligated to use these options. You can simply say, I'm not going to make the meeting.
Right. But I will point out that, we're getting the downtown plan adopted. We're coming to the commission, if I can release the document soon in the next, probably August, September. Galia is on the general plan update committee. We're going to be bringing several very important general plan meetings. So if you can't attend virtually and then yeah, we would just want to follow the law. And, we have a lot of really important stuff coming.
Yeah, I
so-
think that's what I was
yeah.
trying to say is that if there's something critical going
Right.
on
Right,
and I can't be here, then I'd say, okay, I'm gonna vote for this just cause option.
right.
But other than that, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Commissioner, I think really what the legislature was doing here was trying to provide an off-ramp for the fully remote COVID situation that we were all in. I think people got pretty used to it in taking meetings from the comfort of their own home and just making sure people don't think that option was going to last forever. So, yeah.
Commissioner Rana.
I have 2 questions. One is that for just cause, one of the conditions is caregiving a family member. So what does family comprise?
You're going to make me go and look in the code, which I'm happy to do. Let's see. I know it. Why don't you ask your second question while I look that up?
Second question is that for physical or whatever disability, do you need to produce some medical documents?
No. You just give a general description without revealing any medical information advice, and I would think that would be sufficient for your fellow commissioners to hold a vote on your ability to use that provision. Let me pull up the specific language for both of those options. Okay, so your first question, the child care option, caregiving rather, I'm sorry. Just cause means any of the following: a child care or caregiving need of a child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner that requires them, meaning the commissioner in this case, to participate remotely. And then child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, and sibling have the same meaning as those terms do, and then it cross-references the health and safety code. I don't think we have to go there, but you can see it's quite broad. And then trying to find the answer to your other question. I may have to get back to you on that, Commissioner, because this law is very long to scroll through. but I know that you just have to provide a general description of whatever physical malady is preventing you from attending.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I also have one question, and this is with respect of the need to pause the meeting. Back with the various technologies and the outages, I'm wondering if the YouTube outage, let's say there's just one technology or platform that's failing us, and I'm going to pick YouTube, but we're still able to broadcast to oh, this gentleman here, what is he? I forget, AMP. We're still able to broadcast to AMP, and there are still people in our chambers. Do we pause the meeting because there's a YouTube outage, or do we upload later to YouTube? And that's basically my question. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, the law addresses this, and so this only applies if someone is attending remotely. So if someone is availing themselves of the 2449 option. But the law says in the event of a disruption that prevents the body from broadcasting the meeting to members of the public using the call-in option or internet-based service option, right? So it's either or, it's not both. Or in the event of a disruption within the local agency's control that prevents members of the public from offering public comments, the body shall take no further action until it's restored. So as long as there is some way to address the commission, voice or otherwise, then you can proceed and to hear the proceedings. But if you've only got YouTube, which only allows people to view the meeting but not actually address the commission, then if you have someone who's remotely attending that night, you cannot proceed until you fix the actual communication link. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. If they're on Zoom and their Zoom goes out, we pause the meeting. I don't think we have the ability to participate via YouTube as a commissioner, but if we were doing it that way, we'd also pause the meeting.
Yeah, my understanding is YouTube is just like a view. It's like a live viewing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. And I have the other answer to Commissioner Rana's question, which was regarding what qualifies, I think, as a physical emergency. It says the body shall request a general description of the circumstances relating to their need to appear remotely at a given meeting. The description generally need not exceed 20 words and shall not require the member to disclose any medical diagnosis or disability or any personal medical information that is exempt under existing law. So keep it short and sweet.
Okay. And one supplementary question, that if the quorum is available and the meeting is on and some technical difficulty arises for the person who is virtually attending, so do we still have to stop or we just continue with the meeting?
The law says that if they have been, if they've begun the meeting and they are in attendance, that their roll call was taken, then if the communication line is severed, then the meeting has to be paused until they can be reconnected. I can't really think of a way to sort of have them recuse themselves from the meeting, while the connection is down. They would have to do that in order to proceed without them being present. And the law doesn't address that situation. So I suppose that is one way to get around it, but you'd have to be able to communicate with them and accept their recusal from the item. So
just so that I understand a step. So if we've got quorum in the building and somebody jumps on and then all of a sudden they're having technical issues, if they email me and say, "Hey Guido, I'm having some issues, I need to sign off from the meeting," then the body in the building could continue, right? Like we wouldn't have to stop the whole meeting, would we?
In theory, the best practice from my point of view and my firm's point of view would be to pause the meeting
Okay.
or to postpone the item, because the law doesn't really address this, and to the extent it does address it, it just says you have to pause the meeting. It doesn't say that they can review.
Oh, okay, because
yeah.
and that would be further grounds for if a commissioner is really going to do this, that you and I meet with or say, hey, do you really have a good connection? Because we have an important item. We really, really need to make sure that you don't cut out halfway through some, right? So, okay, I understand.
Just piggyback on that. So even though, does that mean that even though we have a quorum here, if one of the members, beside the quorum that we have, joined online, and if that person runs into technical difficulties, we still cannot continue with the meeting?
That's my understanding of what Sep just said, but he can confirm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the question that the wrinkle that's being raised here, that Guido raised, is if the commissioner got in touch with the commission or Guido via some other means and said, go ahead without me, I recuse myself. The law doesn't address that situation. I suppose in theory that would be okay, but the best practice would be just to continue the item or to fix the connection if possible before you proceed. The situation that the commissioner is raising now, it sounds like you're saying, can't we just move forward with a quorum if the person drops off and disappears and we don't hear anything from them? I would not recommend that, and the law seems to say, no, you cannot do that. The reason being that they might be a critical tiebreaker, right? And if we don't know that they're recusing themselves from the item, we're not hearing their vote.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, that's why we would want to work with the commission. Like I said, hey, be at a good spot, not on a boat with no connection and you're about to cut out, right? So if we do have to use this, we want to work with the commission. So,
Right.
So,
And then maybe we could have a staff phone number on hand already, where if we do lose a connection, we could call in straight away. And recuse ourselves with having touch base with staff. Is that correct?
no, he
No.
just said that
Not even a
the
phone call.
law is not clear about that,
They'd have to zoom
it
back
sounds
in and
like we
say-
would have to continue that item, which if it's a really important item, that would be very unfortunate. So,
Well,
But realistically, it can be, tricky because during the meeting, we don't always check our emails during the meetings because we're more involved into the discussion. So let's say this person online has recused, but if none of us, especially, during the meeting,
Right.
staff checks the email.
I checked.
And I think if somebody dropped off, we
possible
would,
situation,
we'd probably immediately look to see if there was a text message or something coming in. But it does sound like that's not something that's an option or an opportunity for us to take advantage of.
No,
So
real quick, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Sep. So oftentimes, Sep, somebody's audio will cut out and sometimes they'll call in, but it sounds like from your presentation that have to have the video and the audio available.
Audio
correct?
and audio and visual. Yep.
Okay, so if they lost connection and they call in, we'd have to say, I'm sorry, but the law says you have to have audio and visual
That's right.
present.
It does say
Okay.
that, and look, this is an interesting question that you all are raising, and I'd be happy to circle to figure out if there's a way around this problem and to come back and report next meeting at the informational item on the agenda. So I think the question is whether there is some way, and I think the word we should be using here is abstain, not recuse, because recuse suggests that you have some reason, right? So they would just abstain from the vote, and I'll look into whether they could do that.
Okay, great.
Then, what should we do in case of public comments? Because what we are doing now is, if somebody joins online, when we go to public comment, we allow them to speak, just, with audio. They don't have to show their visuals all the time.
Well, but
I
I
believe
think
that's-
he was saying that this is applicable to you as a commissioner, not to me as a staff member or members of the public. He was just saying if you happen to use this option, you needed to audio and visual, but a member of the public can just mute their video, say what they're gonna say. They don't have, that's my understanding.
That's right. Yeah, this does not apply to the public. We're just talking about commissioners. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the training step. Yeah, if you could follow up on that one point, and then either we can put you on the agenda or we can send I can send a non-attorney client privilege email to the commissioners as a follow-up, because I think that will continue to, especially if you have like a really big item and you already have quorum in the building, it would be unfortunate to, oh, now the whole thing has to stop because somebody went to a bad coffee shop and everything. Yeah, so that would be an important point to follow up on, so.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Agenda and if there's time limit.
Right.
Passes through.
Yeah, and don't take a meeting from a coffee shop because you'll have to
Right.
you'll have to give the ages of everybody in the cafe.
Right.
Thank you,
But-
commissioners.
We never know.
Thank you.
Anything can happen.
Thank you. All right, so, it seems, is there anything further on this item, Guido?
No.
No, all right, and then so we're moving to item B, informational update, Planning Commissioner Academy.
Yeah, so as staff, what we do when we go to trainings, we often will share notes or presentations that we get. It's established in that same practice here. We did have 3 planning commissioners go to the Planning Commissioner Academy, so this is their opportunity. Commissioner Jacob actually typed up something which is in the packet, which hopefully you can you see on your screen? Okay. So I'm going to open it up to Commissioner Jacobson, and then if the other commissioners who attended want to also share some insightful things that they learned and whatnot, so.
Thank you, Guido. My participation at the meeting was actually, I want to say surprising, because I've been to many of these conferences in the past and I have not been impressed. And this one I was quite impressed with. I was impressed with the quality of the speakers. I was impressed with the topics that were addressed. I thought that the meetings were well run and that the people that were speaking had the backgrounds and the expertise to be talking about the things that they were. And so, those are in the packet there. Those are the different ones that I attended. But the thing that was funny was that I just kind of tried to summarize takeaways. And as I listened to other cities and jurisdictions talking about the issues that they were facing, I found that we were quite blessed. We weren't facing the severe water issues that some other cities are facing, thus preventing them from growth. And also, their inability to meet their RENA numbers and just having a horrible housing shortage that we are also facing. But fortunately, we have a bright future. We can take care of those things. We can plan. I learned something I didn't realize. I thought an EIR was just a standalone document that everybody did, and it turns out it's actually the CEQA document. That's the document that actually helps us determine whether or not a project is CEQA compliant. So I found that interesting. I found we were just benchmark as it relates to RENA. I mean, I heard, I'm sure you heard as well as I did, horror stories about people not being able to do that and will not be able to do that, and we're just in a terrible shape, and we're blessed. Now, how long into the future that's going to last, I don't know, but right now we're blessed. I heard a couple of good ideas. One good idea I thought was publishing YouTube vignettes on very sensitive or important topics that the city is facing, such as the downtown plan. I mean, that would be a great thing to just do 30 or 1 minute, 30-second, 1 minute vignettes and publish them. Then the other thing I learned was that it's not very often that we actually vote against a project or an item, but it does happen. And I learned that that's not the end of it. When you deny a topic or an item, then a resolution has to be prepared denying it, and then it has to come back the next meeting and we have to vote on it to say, yes, we do deny that, and this is why. And I said, well, we've never done that. I don't remember how many we've ever denied, but I thought that was interesting. And another one was that sometimes in our meetings, we may be a little passionate about a topic that is then going to the city council for approval. And we always say, well, can we just, put a little side note in there that we're, have concerns about this. Well, it turns out that we can appoint a commissioner to go to the meeting. And all we have to do is, appoint one or have a volunteer that says, yeah, I'll go to the city council and represent us. And we can actually go to the city council and state our thoughts right then and there. So well, that's a great idea. There was a big session on the objective design standards. And I sat through about half of it and I realized, well, given all of the education and all the work that we've done here in Marina, I could probably give this presentation. I'm going to go have a cup of coffee. I thought that our preparation was that good. And then in talking with a couple other commissioners, we started talking about one of the things that they could add to that agenda would be to set aside an hour or two so that, let's say, commissioners from a regional area could meet together to just sit and talk and discuss common things that are going on in the region. And then the other thing, when I came back, I talked to Guido. I said, well, we could do that as commissioners of, let's say, the peninsula, where once a quarter, maybe we meet for lunch or breakfast or something, and the commissioners meet, and we can do that without violating the Brown Act, as long as we're just talking about, general things that we're all facing, and maybe some, ideas and solutions and that kind of stuff. So those were kind of the things that I brought back from the meetings, and as I said, it was a worthwhile trip. Thank you, Guido.
No problem. Commissioner Hurd, Commissioner Baird.
I would just piggyback on some of the things that Commissioner Jacobson has already mentioned, but I wanted to share some of the legislations that was mentioned. These registrations are more being watched or tracked or in pending status. But before I move on to the registration, I just wanted to talk about the state budget, that the proposed state budget for 2024 and 25. So Governor Newsom proposed, the staff would know this already, 291.5 billion budget. And within this budget, interestingly, it does not include new ongoing funding to address the housing supply and homelessness. And it does not, it had cuts. So climate change and housing received the largest cuts. And there were pauses and reductions of investments in workforce development. So this was the downside of the upcoming state budget that we have to deal with. So that's something that caught my attention. And moving on to the legislation, I will introduce, there were so many legislations being watched or being tracked or pending, so I don't want to share all of them. But for me, there was AB 2553, and it was proposed by Friedman. And this bill, if this bill comes into effect, So it's on housing development, major transit stops, vehicular and traffic impact fees. And if this bill comes into effect, it will increase major transit stops to include an intersection of 2 or more major bus routes with a frequency of service interval of 20 minutes or less during the morning and afternoon peak commute periods. So it's something that we are still watching. And AB 2560, it was proposed by Alvarez. So it's called Density Bonus Law, California Coastal Act of 1976. And because we are in the coastal zone, this measure would require local governments in the coastal zone to comply with the density bonus law for affordable housing on the coast. And AB 3116 proposed by Garcia, housing development density bonuses and student housing developments. So if this bill passes, this measure will allow a density bonus law to occur if the developer sets aside 20% of the best spaces for students, faculty, or school related. Well, I jot down this bill XB, YIGBY, which is a nickname for SB4, and YIGBY, XB stands for Yes in God's Backyard. So it's this bill is talking about land owned by religious organizations and nonprofit colleges to provide affordable housing. So streamlined ministerial approval, even if inconsistencies with general plan and zoning exist. So 100% of the units must be affordable. So 80% geared toward low income and 20% moderate. So it was something that caught my attention. And I like this analysis because we talked about objective standards, we talked about how, objective standards tries to be black and white, but through providing language that's measurable, quantifiable, enforceable, and easily defined. So objective standards, when we talk about grammatical term models, it falls into shall. One shall do this. And we also talked about design guidelines in our meetings, which is more recommendation, which is not enforceable, and which is not measurable, and which is more subjective. So this design guidelines are more talking about should. So we are talking about should versus should. So objective guidelines shall, design guidelines more should, as to how the city should pursue and what the builder should consider. Yeah. So I thought that was simple, but just easy to understand concept. Yep. So I have other things, but I think it'll be, boring to go over all these different regulations. So I will pass the floor to Baron.
I thought the conference was very, very interesting. I learned a lot. I came not knowing pretty much anything. And every panel was incredibly enriching for me. And the lectures were fantastic. I was very happy to learn about CEQA. I didn't know anything about it. I never even heard about it because this was not my field. I found there was a panel about that I found very interesting relationship between commissioners, city council staff, and the mayor. It was a very interesting presentation. They brought the mayor of Fremont to speak on that panel. And I had the beginner luck the night before to sit with the commissioner from Fremont, who is also the president, Benjamin Yee. I just happened to run into him in the restaurant, and I spent an hour and a half having dinner with him. And he explained to me why Fremont is the happiest city in the country. I actually asked him to explain to me why Fremont is the happiest city in the country, and he was very proud to explain to me all the different elements and how they work so well. And also described, the relationship with the unions and the mayor. And I just found this incredibly interesting, the whole experience. I have my notes at home. I didn't bring anything here, so I can just share a few anecdotes. I did take pictures of the screens to remind me about some of the things, and I think the final lecture with all the assembly bills and Senate bills, when he did the review of all those bills, was super interesting. It was a lot of information to take at once, but I'm very, very glad I got the chance to go and learn all these things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
And then for Commissioner Walton and Rana, I know Commissioner Walton, the time of the conference usually conflicts with your tax season. But in September, the state APA conference is actually going to be in Monterey. And there might be some commissioner stuff that, so that you can maybe get some more training.
I would like that.
Just so follow up with me in May or June. Because I'll be signing up for that conference in May. Not this year, but the following year. So May of 2025, the state APA conference is in Monterey. And so I know that you haven't been able to go to this because of your tax time. So reach out to me. And maybe we can get you to go to the APA in Monterey in a year from now.
Is there a September meeting as well, or did I miss?
September, I'm going to Riverside for the state conference.
Oh, okay.
So, but this one's closer than the one after that. So
I was gonna apply for paid time off for next year anyway. So
Oh, okay.
luckily.
And same for Commissioner Rana. If the schedule doesn't work in terms of, it's always usually in January, February, we can try to get you some other training as well. So.
And this meeting that we just attended next year is it San Ramon?
Oh, okay.
Santa Rita? No. Santa Rosa.
Oh, North Bay,
Santa
North
Rosa.
Bay.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
pretty close.
Great.
I had access to some of the PowerPoints, so if anybody needs it, I can share.
Great. Yes, please. Yeah, share with me and I can share with the rest of the commission. So.
Okay.
So Vice Chair Walton, we have one more smaller informational item and I'll pass it off to Nick. So.
Okay, so item C is a informational item on a emergency tree removal, which happened at 172 Haddon Place. This is a little more unique for our tree removals in that it's a single family home, typically in City of Marina, under our tree ordinance, single family homes, when they're located in a single family residential district. So where single family residences are permitted, does not require a tree removal permit to remove a tree on their lot. This happens to be in a R4 zone or residential multifamily zone where single family homes are not permitted. So they had a tree, during the storms, one of the large branches fell. There's pictures in the staff from the arborist report where the large branch failed. It luckily only fell on the lawn. It didn't fall on any structures or hurt anybody. And they had an arborist, Amanda Gates, certified arborist, do a arborist report and a hazardous, a tree hazard evaluation form, and it had a hazard of 11. So we authorized the same day. We do this typically right away because we don't want to incur any liability. We do this very, very quickly, and we issue a quick letter saying we have reviewed the arborist report and the hazard evaluation form, and we understand that this is an emergency to remove it, and then we authorize it. And then typically within a week, the tree is removed. So the tree has been removed. And yeah, any questions?
And then we're only bringing it because the municipal code mandates that if we do this, we have to report it out to the commission. So that's all we're doing today.
Right.
So
That's-
there's no action from the commission.
Right.
Any thoughts or questions from the guys? None? All right. So that's the end of that information. Oh, Commissioner Rana, I'm sorry, and Commissioner Barron.
Yeah, it's just a general comment for the staff that whenever we have an issue concerning the general public, like we have this issue for the caretaker condition user permit coming in. I do not know whether we do it or not, but we should do that. We should take other stakeholders' opinion also, like we gave this condition use permit to facility, but there are other businesses in the same area. So if we ask them also, are they okay with this kind of arrangement? Because it's not only this particular subject. On any other subject which concerns general public, the other stakeholders are the public who's living in that area or who are going to be affected by that. So they should also be involved. Although we have the public hearing, but people don't.
Yeah, so, oh, I'm getting echo. Hello? Oh, so to your point, Commissioner Rana, whenever Nick has an item that appears before the planning commission, he's mandated by our municipal code to notify everybody within 300 feet. And that gives them the official notice that this item is appearing before the commission, and we're required to do it at a minimum of 10 days before, but as a practice, Nick usually gets it out 2 weeks before. So if somebody has a real issue with the project, usually after that notice gets sent out, they'll approach the project planner and they'll say, hey, I have real issue with the project. And then they'll come to the hearing because they would have gotten a notice. So yeah, so that's our way of, and then for like the downtown plan, which you guys are gonna look at again. When? Yes. Hello? So for the CEQA training that we gave in January, we're required really meet people where they are in life. Like not everybody's gonna read the notice. But that's why we'll go to the farmer's market, we'll have a booth and say, hey, we're doing all this great stuff. What are your thoughts? And so I did that in, so wait, today's March, January, December. And I went for about 4 hours and I spoke to literally about 100 people in that 4 hour period. I actually didn't sit down for the whole 4 hours. And so to your point, though, we're doing more than the minimum and trying to follow that directive from the council to meet our very diverse community. So,
Well, thank you for doing that.
no problem.
I read the report and I noticed there was nothing about replacement of the tree. And I spoke to Nick about it. And I understand that they are not required to replace it and there are different ordinances in Marina. But I just would like to bring up the issue that when the tree, such a big tree is cut, that there should be replacement. And if we don't have anything on in the rules, maybe we can bring it up in the tree committee and think about somehow that we get something to done about that when such a big tree is getting cut for emergency and to find ways that it will not burden the homeowner too much, that it will be too much of a crisis, financial crisis for them in this kind of emergency.
Absolutely. And I understood that Nick's the main staff person for the tree committee. And I understood that
Yeah.
they actually are working
Yeah.
on that now.
Yeah, I'm not
And
sure why there's
why
feedback.
is there feedback? I
You
don't,
might want to turn your mic off and then turn it off and on again. So, oh, I'm getting it too. So I will say that we have a work plan for the tree committee. And in our next meeting, next planning commission meeting, we're gonna have a new planning commissioner represent the planning commission at the tree committee. And, sorry. And
if in the future, since this was a protected tree, we could, when we go with the tree committee, if we could also see if there's a way to make sure that trees like the Monterey cypress are at least, or I'm pretty sure you guys went over this, but are saved as frequently as possible.
yeah, typically if you can save a tree, you try to save it. There's been other situations where people would come to us with a emergency tree removal request or something where they get the same hazard form done and it doesn't meet the criteria for removal. So for instance, if you have a cypress tree where one branch falls off, it's in the middle of a field, it's not next to anybody that walks near it. There's no threat to humans or structures. So then you just leave it, right? So that wouldn't constitute, even if it could potentially fall over, you just let it be naturally stay. So when you cut down a tree, if you cut it and leave the trunk, what will happen is you'll get shoots to come up in the soil, and they'll prop up everywhere. So you do want to get rid of all of it, otherwise you're going to have them sprouting up over your entire lawn. So yeah, it's yeah, and they'll do that even when you remove the whole trunk and everything. They'll still have shoots for. a
They're
few
trying to
months.
survive.
Yeah.
Trees are neat. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jack. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the comments from the dais. And we're gonna go. I think we have item 8B left.
That item got continued to the next meeting.
Did we say that or
Um,
I gotta go back? That's for the, and then so then. Item 8B is continued. Any other items? No, staff, is there a staff and major projects update?
not at this time.
Not at this
Just
time?
the brass taps making a lot of progress.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get a beer there soon. And the Home 2 Suites Hotel, Harvey's making a lot of progress on that hotel. So that should be getting its final occupancy soon. And so a lot of development going on in the dunes and definitely some great opportunities for Marina residents. So
Thank you, Guido. How about any correspondence?
no,
None. And then it looks like that's it for us. We are adjourning.
awesome.